Yeah, and in the end, what it was about is I wouldn't allow this lieutenant to punish this black firefighter. And that was the beginning of an unending 15 years of constant escalating retaliation.
Silly Jimmy Berlo, always standing up for the rights of minorities. When are you ever going to learn, brother? Well, you'll never learn, and that's why your story is going to resonate with me. It's going to resonate with the public.
I confronted him about it, and he said, why do you protect this no good nigga piece of shit? And I said, now I know what the problem is.
And it's lights, camera, action. Let's take another ride with KingCast.
In the first case with firefighter Cahill, who did an outstanding job, it was defamed. He was the first firefighter in that restaurant. He was an aggressive, good firefighter. And they assassinated their character to cover up for what really happened and the circumstances leading especially to Warren Payne's death. Warren burned to death because of unsuitable fire gear. It was a bid rigging scheme for this Viking brand of fire gear.
Now, here's the thing as you look at the anguished face of a woman who lost her home because of this shady company. As I noted back on my 2009 blog post, I knew much of this from another source who was a first responder at night before I even met Jimmy Berlo. I knew it back when I was working on legislation with Senator Bruce Tarr regarding Robert Taylor's fire death in the illegal building out there, the Lorraine, it was called, but in Gloucester, Mass. But major press and the internet mafia will only allow you to know so much about certain things by keeping people like Jimmy down and keeping people like me down. But stick with me, kid. I'll take you all the way home.
If you read the report on Caitlin Payne's death, you can see the Nashua officials were obstructed by the Boston Police, City Hall, Boston Fire Department, the Suffolk County DA, and the medical examiner. They conspired together to conceal the circumstances of their death. Ultimately, the city was responsible for that fire for failing to inspect the ductwork and the routine inspections for cleanliness.
Episode 2 will address the Facebook bans that are arguably a byproduct of racism and other forms of cultural hegemony, as noted by the Seattle Stranger in this piece right here. However, at the outset today, this episode, dealing with corruption in the world of firefighters in Boston, is what's paramount. And I want to inform you, however, that it's important in this day and age to recognize that race relations between most whites and most blacks, as common people, are just fine. But it's the establishment that gains when ordinary people are oppressed and pitted against themselves and each other and destabilized, and this helps them to consolidate their authority over the middle class. So, look at your white brother, look at your black brother, look at your white sister, look at your black sister, and everything in between and all around, and recognize that these are your people. Let's get into this. Now, Jimmy Berlo finished at the top of his class. He became a fire captain and has developed a fireproof hose. All right? So you would think that Jimmy Berlo would have been the darling of the Boston Fire Department, right? No, sir. Now, this story is going to show you what happens to a man like that as a white man who befriends a black man or black men in Boston. So let's briefly explain these things that you're going to see in the movie now. Okay? You see, Jimmy had 3 strikes against him and then some. Strike 1. He's not a legacy firefighter. Okay? His name was believed to have been Spanish. Whatever it wasn't Irish enough, so that's a problem. Strike 2. He defended a black man. I believe his name was Richard Garcia. They were playing basketball one day, and he outplayed a white superior. And after that, a series of racial epithets and other racist conduct commenced toward Mr. Garcia. So Mr. Berlo came to Mr. Garcia's defense, and the next thing you know, he was facing a physical attack, as well as a series of disciplinary actions that culminated in a trumped-up Civil Rights Commission filing for sexual harassment, with the assistant area DA, Julie Higgins, teaming up with her buddy Sheila Leahy. You'll see her there together. They're best friends forever, okay? Sheila Leahy or Leahy, whatever her name is, okay? So, All this ties in with those cops snooping around. It ties in with the area district attorney Dan Conley, who's not running for re-election this year. Anyway, Conley can't stand me, okay? You see how they act toward me. He won't even answer my questions, all right? So.
Are you a credentialed member of the press?
I'm a member of the press.
Show me your credentials.
How is it that murder two
Show me your
How is it that murder
credentials.
two got
Show me your credentials, okay?
I don't have two.
I don't show your credentials. If you're not a member, a credentialed member of the press, I'm not going to.
You know what? I'll get that for you. I mean, what?
You know something? I don't talk to anybody.
You know what? No, you don't. You can be as rude as you want to be, and I'll get it right here.
Because
After I posted that video, it mysteriously disappeared from YouTube after it had 6,000 or 7,000 hits, okay? And on YouTube it said, oh, this is a duplicate of a previously uploaded video. It was not. So something funny went on there too. And I'll let you guys figure out what may or may not have happened. I'm just here to report the facts. So, strike three. He also defended an Hispanic man, Albert Arroyo, who was scapegoated for disability and pension abuse, okay? There was a federal investigation some years back into these types of abuses, and the legacy firefighters had made it all into a game. Someone would step into a higher-ranking veteran position, all right, for a day, and then have a career-ending injury that day at that precise moment, and then retire with a golden parachute, okay? So, Albert Arroyo was not a legacy firefighter. He wasn't in the clique, all right? But he had injuries that he sustained on the job. And the problem is, when they went after him in this federal criminal prosecution, I believe it was Exhibit 26 he showed me, was a letter from their own physician noting that the regimented, structured activity of bodybuilding and weightlifting was beneficial for Mr. Arroyo. So that's why the jury was only out for 4 hours, yet how did all the mass media cover this? Surprise verdict, surprise verdict. Oh, really? What was so surprising about that? That the white power structure couldn't crush this minority man? Huh. So anyway, Mr. Berlo came to his defense, and we videoed that, okay? And guess what? That's when those cops started showing up at his house. Fancy that. Now, let's go back to the firehouse and the lack of support from the union, which never filed any grievances, or anybody else at Boston Fire Department, their lack of respect for Mr. Berlo. Folks, Jimmy Berlo is every man. We are all part of Jimmy Berlo, and his spirit is part of us. But private and government oppression is built into the system to keep his voice down. When his voice is silenced, all of our collective voices are silenced. I represent our collective voices, and that is precisely why people are doing bad things to attempt to silence my cameras right here. Get it? Got it? Done.
He's on me. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no.
It appears at this point that anything filed by a minority is not credible.
Because I was forced to retire. They tricked me. As you recall, I was exonerated in the federal court of law.
I mean, they utilize city agencies and departments to punish and reward people. When Albert was exonerated, because it was revealed in court, he was never part of the FBI investigation. It was after the FBI investigation was called off by the U.S. Attorney via the Justice Department. They needed to conclude it because of notoriety. They needed something to show for it. When he went there, he told them, you're all done. You have to put in your papers. What that means is that you're involuntarily retired. They literally had a car waiting outside with Edmund Street, a firefighter, drive him right to City Hall to do it. In fact, when they asked in court, how long does it normally take for a disability pension to be processed? It 2.5, 4 years. And they said, and his was processed in 2 weeks, and it wasn't even his writing on the documents. He just assumed he was being voluntarily retired. They concocted the story, the thing that he couldn't carry his clipboard, that he didn't want to work. He was just briefly on a minor injury.
Mm-hmm. Just sauntering up your driveway as if there's nothing wrong with this.
These are the same people that harangued the Quincy police and to raid my house. Right here, I was sick with pneumonia, October 2014, 10 o'clock in the morning. Went to get in the shower. 7 police cars, an unmarked car, a search dog. My name's Jimmy Berlo. I retired from the Boston Fire Department involuntarily. I became a Boston firefighter in late October 1987. I always wanted to be a fireman. I gave up a job as a journeyman union carpenter to pay nearly double that. And when I had become a lieutenant, I went to East Boston District 1, which was considered a dumping ground. I had a firefighter on my company. Good kid, good worker. And this lieutenant, not even on the company, across the floor, apparently had a vendetta against this kid. He was trying to abuse his authority in the Department of Rules and Regulations to retaliate against the kid. I confronted him about it, and he said, why do you protect this no good nigger piece of shit? And I said, now I know what the problem is. I was the acting captain. Besides, he was my firefighter. I said, that's the end of it. Be thankful that he doesn't pursue this outside the job. His justification for this was that Garcia, they were playing basketball in the school yard behind the firehouse. Apparently Garcia outplayed him, and he said he gave him a look. And this incensed him so much. And this lieutenant was known as an incompetent, a coward. And personally, I know he's a thief as far as house supplies. Extremely selfish, and always evading his duties. But he devoted so much effort to pursuing this kid. It was crazy. Even though he had a reputation for this, they backed him over the firefighter. But I thought I'd dispense with the issue. Apparently, that this lieutenant went to him saying that I was preventing this firefighter from being disciplined for a legitimate rule infraction, and that showed disrespect towards his district chief via me. So he sought out a way. He was looking for an incident that he could either provoke or a justification for imposing his authority and initiate disciplinary action against me. It was a Sunday morning. We came in as usual. An off-duty firefighter came with some flyers. We're talking. Continuing our conversation, District Chief walked over and said to the off-duty firefighter, give him another one. And I couldn't, and the firefighter became nervous. I said, no, Doc, I don't want one. And he turns around and yells at me, you just got an oral warning, mister. Give him another one. He yells at the firefighter, off-duty firefighter. I said, no, it's okay. So just leave. You're not in any trouble. And he started screaming at me, you just got yourself a reprimand. We go upstairs. The deputy ordered me to explain what happened. I did. The district chief kept interrupting, saying it was a liar. Then finally, when the district chief was caught in a blatant lie, he jumped up and tried to strangle me. 8 days later, I find out that I've been suspended without a hearing for a week. Yeah, and in the end, what it was about is I wouldn't allow this lieutenant to punish this black firefighter. And that was the beginning of an unending 15 years of constant escalating retaliation. And for the firefighter, what he had to endure, it's unbelievable. And it was, I'm here today because he's not the only story, or me, that's so pervasive, the culture of this department and the blatant corruption, which has actually cost people lives, civilians and firefighters. We're in the back bay here on Back Street. And a year ago, March, had this actually five-story wood-joist brick row house. It was on fire. And it was a demonstration of how badly the fire department's declined because of corruption and neglect. Just the sheer lack of competence. You had 3 deputy chiefs there, half a dozen district chiefs, a couple dozen lieutenants and captains, hundreds of firefighters, and apparently nobody knew what to do. A deputy from the southern part of the city came on his own initiative, wasn't supposed to be there, grabbed a handful of guys to a rescue effort. Well, the principal reason that this happened is that the lieutenant firefighter that initially went in there with the fire hose never got the hose turned on because the guy driving the engine apparently didn't know how to operate the pump. The guy that was supposed to secure a supply at the hydrant dropped the feeder hose, ran and grabbed the forcible entry tool, ran around the block, smashed the 3 cellar windows in the cellar, causing the fire to intensify explosively, and apparently it roared down the hallway over in the lieutenant firefighter. They had to seek refuge in an apartment, I guess, different apartments, and there was over 10 minutes went by, and nobody apparently knew what to do. Yeah, apparently they're not done, and like I feel they are dangerous, and they get more desperate. I mean, it's now what? It's May 2015, and this past Monday I got one of them, untraceable phone calls. I got them before when, their antics were happening. You either get like 000, or you get a number and it repeats again instead of saying the name or unknown or private. And, the police and the Suffolk DA have access to these untraceable numbers. But I'm tired of looking over my shoulder all the time, and I can't tolerate my family being harassed. It's not going to happen again. It's not. And with this Julie Higgins is the principal orchestrator, and she needs to be dealt with.